section 4 of our Unity 3D engine, we're actually going to start playing with some game objects. You've actually already experienced two game objects. Two of those are the main camera and directional light. They are part of our hierarchy, they are part of our scene. Without these, without the light, obviously everything would be black. And without the main camera, you can't position where your 3D animation would be. So let's add in a new game object. Remember, we're going to make a cube. We're going to do a bunch of raining shapes, kind of hinted at that by doing our things earlier. So to create that, I can actually right click in here, do create empty, or you can see I can click up here and do create empty. There's a bunch of ways to do this inside of Unity. I'm going to go ahead and click up here. You can see there's my game object, and I can go ahead and double click on it. You see it brings it to the forefront. Let's go ahead and rename it. So I'm right clicking. I'm going to call it cube. So when I do that, I talked about this in a previous video, you can see my inspector now has changed. You can see this is actually the name of it. You can see I have a transform where it gives me the position. It has X, it has my Y, and it has my Z. So it also has some add components, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But let's talk about the X, the Y, and the Z. So this is actually what we call our vectors. And I know you hear vectors and you think about math and calculus and all these type of things. Well, actually it's a fundamental part of animation. In order to create 3D objects, you need to kind of be aware of X, Y, and Z. And normally you all are used to X and Y from geometry, or flat, plane surface, a graph. But Z gives us the depth. So in Unity, if you see I have my game object actually selected, which is my cube. The red represents your X. So I can see I can move this anywhere. This is my X axis. The green actually represents my Y. And the blue is my other vector, which represents kind of my forward and backwards. So this is how we actually create our 3D objects. We have our X, we have our Y, we have our Z. And again, this is all based in vectors. I know you're like, yeah, when you were learning vectors in math, you're like, I'll never use this ever in my life, so why am I using it? You actually will use it a lot in game design, especially with 3D game design. To get to the origin, you can see my positions right now. I can put everything. I can actually change stuff over here. So I can say I want it at 0x, 0y, and 0z. And you can see what it did. Remember with my mouse, I can play with these. So if I double click on it, it'll center it for me. And you can also play with the scales and everything. So if I wanted to position, let's say, move this is my origin, I wanted to move it over here. I could actually pull it this way and just put it here, and you can see that is actually at 10. Wanted to move it back, I could just type that 0. If I wanted it 10 above, I can actually type it here, and you can see if I zoom out, actually 10 above, or if I wanted to put it back at the origin, I can do that. Normally what I use is these arrows. If I want to be precise, I actually could use these here. So that's the basis of this video. We wanted to show you how to create a new game object and talk a little bit about the inspector window. We will be using this a lot in the future, but go ahead and just play around with these different values, these vectors, the red, the green, and the blue. And I didn't mention it, but when you actually select it, you can see it turns yellow. So any one you pull. That's it for this video. In the next video, we will actually add in some meshes and make this actually look like a cube. Go ahead and slide on over to the next video.